the Sun Eater series, and the reason why the last book landed so well is because it's a series that's really designed for the ending.
Do you guys want to hear my most contrarian take about Sun Eater?
I think it's probably the top moment of the entire series for me.
I just went through something that I think is going to stand the test of time. And in this genre, will probably be looked at like Dune or Hyperion or something many, many years later.
This series ruined a lot of themes in every other book for me because I don't know what else I want explored.
Sun Eater and Name of the Wind of...
Oh, no.
The Name of the Wind, one of
You're
its
just talking about everything I hate, man.
I know.
Sanderson and Name of the Wind. Oh, God.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Tutor Ramble episode. I'm one of your hosts, Austin.
I'm your other host, Richard.
Today, we are discussing the Sun Eater series, books 1 through 7. We just need to talk about it more, and what better than talking with our friends all from BookTube here. We have Jared Henderson, Jed Hearn, and John from Talking Story all here to talk and gush about all of Sun Eater. And if you guys just want to introduce yourselves in the order, we said your names. Jared, hello, welcome back. How are you?
Yeah.
Are you feeling the Sun Eater stuff?
I am feeling the Sun Eater stuff. I'm excited to talk about this series with you guys.
Heck yeah. And we have Jed.
Hey everyone, yeah, super keen for this. Sun Eater is, well, I guess we'll get into it, but I think it's my new favorite series of all time now. So lots of thoughts and very keen to chat with you all about it.
And welcome back again, John.
Hey, awesome to be here. I think, look, I'm at a war with myself because I think overall series, start to finish, I think it would be my all-time favorite sci-fi series. But that's really hard for me to say as much as I love Hyperion and Dune. But I think it's the truth, just for the whole thing. I can't. Yeah,
I'm with you, John.
I think so.
I know.
I think so. I might have to fight myself more. Like individual books, I don't think it makes it a number one. There are other individual books I would put up there, but for totality of series, I think so. I think that's the case.
We're all going to figure this out together because I know from for those that don't know here. So we have Jared, more the philosophy side of it, has an actual degree, unlike the rest of us. Sorry, guys, I know you guys have degrees too. But Jed, who
not so much.
We're amateur yappers.
Yeah.
Jared is the accredited yapper.
Yeah, we're just amateur yappers. And
Some people would say I have too many degrees.
Look at behind you. My goodness, what is going on there? Jared, I know.
It looks like you're about to defend your dissertation right now.
Well, so the trick is I film in that back corner, and it looks all nice when I film, and then I move to my desk, and it's pure chaos, sort of behind me. You guys are getting this super. This is actually the real scoop. Screw Sun Eater. It's the behind the scenes, the hidden truth of Jared Henderson. Turns out he can't organize his cables.
And, Rich, hi. You're also here.
I exist.
You ready to discuss Sun Eater?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be,
here.
Again, all spoilers, so I just want to be clear. At this point, it's going to be a full spoiler talk, so click off if you don't want to get spoiled this series. We've talked about it so much, so if you want to get convinced to read it. He does eat the sun.
It does happen.
Page 1, that's revealed. And all right, so just go click off if you don't want to get spoiled, and let's do this thing, okay?
All right.
Wow. So we wanted to format this a little bit. We're going to ramble a lot, but there's so much inside here. We're going to talk books 1 through 7, and we're all coming fresh off of just finishing Shadows Upon Time. Kind of break this down into characters, themes, and big moments, and then we could just go off from there. Do you guys want to start with one of those in particular? Or anybody feel like that one's grabbing at you?
I mean, I like big moments because I feel like this book is full of big moments.
Let's
All
do
right.
that then.
Yeah.
Let's start it.
Let's start big moments,
I personally want to start with probably the smallest of the big moments, but it was at least a big moment to me because I know we're going to talk a lot about book 7. Like book 7 it's the finale of the series. However, for me, I want to talk about the biggest moment in Empire of Silence for me personally, and the reason why I was interested enough to continue on to book 2. Because people know, at least our opinions is book 1 is the weakest of the series. I was teetering on the edge. There were 2 things that carried me on to book 2. 3. One is the recommendation of our good buddy Cooper. He said, "Hey, you got to read book 2." It's okay. Second was the interest in the world, the C.L.son, and just going ooh, okay. this is a cool enough world. I like how he describes the technology. I like the world building.
Mm-hmm.
The third is a particular character moment that we've now know was forcibly added on by Ruocchio's editor. He didn't even want this scene in there, and yet it meant so much to me.
I think I'm gonna have the same reaction. Yeah.
The moment with Kat and Kat dying on Hadrian did not hit me in the sense of, Kat being I'm tied so deeply to Kat. That's not what made that moment important. It was the whole beginning of the book of Hadrian trying to distance himself from his father being this cruel, evil man telling Hadrian, like, hey, you're a Palatine, you're different. You are not the same as these plebeians. Like, just this harsh, vindictive man. And ultimately Hadrian saying, no, Dad, we're all the same. And then him being forced in that moment to realize, like, emotionally, he does still believe, like, morally speaking, him and the Palatine, they're the same. But realizing in that moment of, because of his Palatine blood, he won't get the sickness. And that Kat is so young compared to him that he will live hundreds of years past her. Like, he is fundamentally different. And in that dark moment for him, he's learning his father's lesson. And despite how cruel his father is, he's right. And what a rough way to, like, that was a fantastic moment to learn of, not just a emotional moment, but it spoke to a bit more depth of the story than just surface level rebellion and teenage growth. It spoke to more of, actually, you may have your qualms with your elders, but sometimes your elders have a point. Maybe you'll take it a different way. Maybe you'll find a new spin and a new direction from it, but you shouldn't discount the wisdom of your elders completely.
And so that was your first big Sun Eater moment for you of, hey,
Yeah.
this is a small, big moment.
It was the most impactful moment for me, and the thing I remember most from that book, and the fact that carried on throughout the rest of the series. In tiny details of remembering Kat and the first instance when he knew that he was different, and it more so added responsibility to him, that he realized that because he is Palatine, there are greater responsibilities placed upon him, and there's a heavier burden. So
it's really the whole story in microcosm, right? Because the whole series is essentially about Hadrian trying to run away from his destiny, only to discover that this is what he has to do, right? Like, how many times in book 7 does he try to go against the visions he's seen, and he tries to end the war against the Cielsen in another way, only to realize that, no, like, this is the way it has to go. I have to do it in this particular fashion or whatever. And I think that the whole thing with Kat there, which you were just describing really well, Richard, is that it's literally describing, what he's going to experience time and time again over the series, which is, no, there are things about you that are different, and that means that you are not able to live an ordinary life. In some extent, that means you have more responsibility, more reasons why you need to be doing, different things or whatever. But also, I think it just speaks to the fact that, like, there's that great refrain that is repeated at the ending of several of the books, which is that I shall go on alone, right? So much of the series is about Hadrian having to discover that he is in some ways, like, limited in his ability to truly connect with other people because of the choices he's made and the destiny that he is heading towards. And I think that is a big part of the reason why you really bond with him as a character, because there are times in our lives where we've all felt like an outsider. We've all felt like we're, outside the window looking in, and that's basically Hadrian's whole experience. And by the time we reach the end of the series, he's really suffered from that in a lot of ways. But he has also recognized that it's his duty to embrace it in some extent.
I love how a lot of these big moments too there's a story behind them, because you said his editor had him put in that section. I remember when we first asked him of, hey, the moment for me, the first big moment for me was the more stereotypical one of him Howling Dark. He dies. That was the moment for me where I got hooked into the series. And he said, I guess his reasoning behind this, well, you could ask him about it too, it's like, people say they can't kill the main character. No, I'm killing him. I'm doing it. And like, well, okay, you blew my mind with that decision, because how can the narrator be dead? All these questions. What's the quiet? What is going on here? Yes. That was the moment in Sun Eater for me. And then he does it again in Disquiet Gods, which for you what was the first big moment? Was it that, or was it something else? Because personally for me, I know you're saying the small big moment was with Kat, but was that also for you the first moment?
Sure. The most dramatic big moment was combination in Howling Dark. It's
that scenes before that as well.
The scenes
with
before it of
Cielson,
the actual doom and gloom moment of Hadrian realizing the Cielson don't have a word for peace.
That was big.
And then it's just submission of like all of his aspirations, his childhood dream, everything he's worked hard for, his betrayal of Genon, everything was for nothing. That war actually is inevitable. He can't stop it. There is no talking your way out of it. And that, and then of course the big death scene.
Yes.
But Jared, was there what was the first big moment for you in this series?
Well, I was pretty hooked on the book from the very beginning. Like I'm a big Empire of Silence fan. So I thought, like, I really liked the mood of it. I liked the humanizing of Hadrian when he falls in love with like one of his guards, right?
Yes.
There. And I
The
thought
pilot.
that I thought all of that was like just done really well. And to be honest, I kind of thought the Cat stuff for me felt like a little bit flat. I didn't feel like the big gut punch there. It felt like it was. I didn't know the story at the time, but it felt like it had been shoehorned in a little bit. And it turns out it did. But I think the moment in Empire of Silence where I can't remember the character's name, unfortunately, but there's this like the Cielson captain that's been captured, and he is going to like he's meeting there with them, and he's kind of alone, and then he realizes like the moment this guy is freed, he's going to try to kill him.
Yep.
Right. And there's and all of this talk of negotiation, all of this this aspiration he might have to like free them, and then like or to somehow mean he could communicate with the Cielson, goes away in that moment. Maybe he still tries to hold on to it. You see that in Howling Dark. But that was the first big like character moment I think that I felt really strongly about. But I think the real like, oh, this is a much bigger story than I thought it was going to be kind of moment is when you meet Karn Sagara for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And so suddenly you're in like the world. You've already encountered the Extrasolarians, which we kind of knew had to be real, but like you're entering into like the Age of Legends is like alive. Right. And so and Hadrian is sort of taking his place in that story. And I thought the Karn Sagara stuff early on especially was just so well done.
Yeah, and that's a whole section. I forgot about how curious I was to go to Vorgosos. Is Vorgosos real? Was a big driver early. It's easy to forget about that, which I did after reading another 5 books of that stuff was riveting. That was awesome to read. Jed, what about you?
The extraordinary stuff kind of becomes normal after a while because you're like, oh, of course, Karn Sagara is real. Like, oh, of course, he's Kalen, right? Like, there's, well, why wouldn't he be, right?
There's thousands
you just get so used to it. But I think that that's the moment where you're like, oh, this is huge. Like, this is a huge story, and of course, like being aboard Karn Sagara's ship, which is going to play a huge role in the end of the series as well. Just seeing how kind of strange and titanic it is. The strange geometry and stuff that we don't get an explanation for 5 more books, right? It's pretty astounding.
What about you,
to
John?
me, I think. Oh, sorry, John, you go ahead, and then I'll jump in.
Big moments. I think I'm with Richard. Big moment for me. The first big moment where I really felt all in. When I chart Hadrian's arc for me, I love how he starts as an idealist. Like so many of us. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to be my dad. I'm going to find my own way. And, he's trying to run away from this aristocracy. And I love the juxtaposition of how myths have kind of gotten mixed together. And we have these ideas of Sid Arthur And he's somewhat mirroring Siddhartha's path to
Yep.
enlightenment as he runs away from aristocracy, and he's trying to find out how everyone else really lives and where the worth really is there. And I thought Cat was a beautiful illustration of that, and him losing something, him facing that loss, where he started in a funeral processional after losing his grandmother, and then mirrored by losing Cat, and he's really starting to understand loss, and he's really starting to base his hero's journey on these Arthur, who is going to stand up for might, not just because we're, it should be for everyone, not just the mighty. Siddhartha, who's going to be, it's like he's based, and the other hero that found the bird the bird aliens and kind of brought them into the empire and stuff.
Rikatani.
Simeon the Red.
Simeon the Red. Yeah, and he wants to be one of them. He's this idealist that wants to end this war and have an olive branch, and he's learned so hard to speak the language, and he wants to be that bridge between the two cultures. And he's on this journey as he's dealing with loss. And then at the end of that book, the thing that hit me that made me think, oh, this is way bigger, is when they got to that archaeological dig and he started to kind of understand, I'm slipping through space time, and it's like, I'm such a big cosmic horror fan. Like when that started happening, it's like, oh, there's so many layers we're not even getting to. Like we're just finally seeing the beginnings of this here at the very end of the book. Like we have no idea where this is going to go. So I dug all that, and then we just are bombed with huge moments after huge moments as the series moves on. The ending of Howling Dark and several in Demon and White, they just come fast and furious after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jed, what was a big one for you, or big ones for you?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have covered a lot of them. To be honest, I think that one of the things I was going to say, following on from Jared's point about when we meet Khan Sagara, is, to me, Ruocchio's biggest skill is that he is a master of magnitude. He has this incredible ability to make a story feel massive, and to make moments feel really momentous, and to make characters and worlds feel truly huge, which is a lot easier said than done. Like I think an example of this, which kind of brings me into probably one of my favorite moments from relatively early in the series, is, if you think about like the last Star Wars movie, for instance, when Luke confronts the Emperor and Vader, this guy is the Emperor of the whole galaxy, but it doesn't really feel huge. It's like, it's just some dude sitting in this throne room by himself, and there's like 2 guards there. And there's something about
it that way.
Yeah, like I love that ending, but it feels kind of, if you think about it, you're like, oh, this feels a little anticlimactic. I don't know. Contrast that to when Hadrian meets the Emperor at the start of Demon and White, which I'm tossing up in my mind whether that's my favorite or whether Shadows Upon Time is my favorite. But the start of Demon and White, when we go to Forum, we get the scale of that world. We have Hadrian go in to have his audience with the Emperor, and there's some really just simple things he does in his setting descriptions where he's kind of mentioning, how many steps lead up to the Emperor's throne. I think it's like 57 steps, or it's something crazy like that. But just the sort of procession into that, the pomp and ceremony that surrounds the Emperor, and all of the characters kind of leading up into it, the fact that they kind of, are giving you these instructions for like how you should proceed in and, prostrate yourself before the Emperor or whatever. All of that makes me genuinely feel like William is a guy who runs this entire empire with, how many thousands of planets or whatever it is. And I just think that Ruocchio knows how to nail that sense of scale and magnitude at the key important moments in the story. The first time you see a Cielson world ship, right? You really feel the scale of that. And it's not just like this, this meaningless dot. Because I think some authors, they describe things which feel objectively big, but they fail to kind of get the emotional experience of that magnitude across the air gap to the reader. And I think Ruocchio just does that consistently. Khan Sagara, again, fantastic example. He builds up all of these legends around this guy. There's so much anticipation, and all of that anticipation means that when you finally meet him and he's sitting on his throne there, and he's got all the tubes going into his chest, and you've got like the glowing drones flying around and everything, and the fact that we've been waiting for 100 pages, 200 pages to finally have this audience admission with him, like that to me is how you really unlock that true sense of just like, yeah, the scale and the magnitude of the story. So yeah, definitely the meeting with Khan Sagara. I think after I finished reading that book, I wrote down a note for myself just in my writing. I was like, you know what's cooler than a character who's 100 years old? A character who's 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
And that to me is basically like what makes so much of the series great. It's Ruocchio just goes like, you know what's cooler than having like, you know, an empire of 10 planets, an empire of 1,000 planets. You know what's cooler than having a character who lives for, you know, 100 years? What if I made my main character, you know, 1,500 years old by the time the series is done? Like he just
Time jumps,
consistently finds ways to elevate the scale into far more interesting territory. And he does it not in a, you know, a cheap way, but in a way where you actually feel the impact of that, right? Like you feel the kind of, like the psychology of Khan Sagara, this guy who's been around for, what, 15,000 years, however long it is. You actually get to feel glimpses of what that must be like from a psychological level, from an emotional level. And yeah, that to me is one of the cool things that sci-fi can do, is it can just elevate the scale to kind of bring up some really profound questions that wouldn't be possible without that scale in the first place.
Which I know John and Jacob, when you interviewed Ruocchio, he was saying he has aphantasia. What's the word when you can't imagine things in your head?
He doesn't picture.
Doesn't picture the
really?
thing, which is so surprising. And Jed, you for those who are watching too, Jed, you had a great interview with Ruocchio where he brought in 5 lessons he learned from writing the series and 5 you learned from him. And one thing Rich taught me that I thought it was great in our Shadows Upon Time review, Rich pointed out something that while you're all here, I wanted to see if this struck true to you guys as well, especially Jed. You're writing a book right now on how to plot a novel. And
yes.
So what Rich was saying about Ruocchio's prose, because you're talking about those big moments where he's able to describe the scene and look, 57 steps, you can visualize it, the massive scale of it. Rich was pointing out that a specific scene in Shadows Upon Time where when the Cielson just use their ships and do the hold on maneuver, you know, they just chuck in and bam. I think it was that moment where the way that scene was described, right? It was that scene in particular, where the way that scene was described was we see the reflection off of, was it Selene's eyes and her her facial reaction to the explosion. So the way we find out about explosion is looking at Selene zooming in, and then it happens over there, right? That was the scene, I believe. And that's the moment. So again, you were pointing out how something he does with the scale is either if it's a big scene like that where, you know, Cielson warships are coming in, he'll go to something small, such as a facial reaction, the light glittering off the eyes, something focused. And then when it is something small, so a death or something that's very personal, he'll monologue, philosophize, and go something big. You know, death, what is death but for art thou, Romeo? And then he'll zoom back into the death stuff. And do you guys agree that I thought that was a great point, because that rings true with his prose. Like Jared, whoever wants to say something on that, I'm just tossing that as a pie your guys' way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's really important when you are writing scale is, you know, if you just see Godzilla destroying a town, it's sort of meaningless. But if you have a little person that's down there looking up at Godzilla, and the little person is just this tiny, you know, blurred thing in the foreground of the camera, and Godzilla's this big thing in the background, it's destroying buildings. Now it actually feels momentous, right? So, you know, we can only really understand scale through contrast. And I think that, you know, what Ruocchio does really well in those moments where, you're not just seeing this like big zoomed out wide shot CGI establishing image of the Cielson world ships coming in to destroy a planet. You're like in a conversation with someone, and then you're seeing the light hit their eyes, and you're turning around, and you're in this person's perspective, and that makes it feel so much bigger. And the opposite is also really interesting, where he takes moments that are objectively small, whether it might be like, you know, for instance, the death of, is it Nicephorus? I can never pronounce his name.
Nicephorus, I think.
Nicephorus, that's it.
Nicephorus?
So the emperor's, you know, kind of androgynous servant in the end of the book. And like this guy gets shot down by a soldier. Objectively, it's one person's death, but you kind of he immediately expands out from that, and he's like, oh, this is the death of literally all the Palatine
Mhm.
children in
Yeah.
the future
It's
because
the
he
death
was
of the
holding
empire. Yeah.
genetic
Yeah.
codes, literally, right? And I actually think that's a big thing that kept me reading like early on in the series in particular is things would happen that in themselves were probably not that massive or dramatic. Yet he would find ways to describe it such that you realize this is kind of like a very important thing for the overall stakes of the series and the overall, universe. Like, yeah, going back to Kat's death, it's this one person's death, like arguably you can say it doesn't really affect, the wider universe that much, but it is one of the really first tragic moments where Hadrian discovers life isn't fair. You are different from people. You're going to be subjected to a lot of suffering. You're going to struggle to connect with people. So yeah, I think that Ruocchio is just very good at being able to build that contrast and shift between like the small scale of what's happening right in front of me and the large scale of like what is happening at that universal level.
Like right after he meets William for the first time we see it, there's that scene in like a garden where he meets a soldier, and the soldier shows him the coin that has like his face on it.
Yeah.
All right. And to show that there's like this cult of Hadrian growing.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it's this like little moment, but of course it's a great symbol too, because it's like debasing the currency to like honor someone else too, right? And it's a way of like showing that like something is growing enough that someone would like risk that on forum, like revealing it. Because we know that within the military, like within the Legion, there are like cults basically. Like there's the cult of Siddhartha within the military that has to like operate in the shadows. And now there's like a cult of Hadrian basically growing, of the half mortal growing. And I think that's ends up being very relevant for the rest of the series, but it's a great, like very human way of showing it, that it's just one guy trying to like share his belief with Hadrian.
A quick break from our episode to show you the best world building tool you can get on worldanvil.com. Worldanvil.com, if you want to build your characters, your maps, you're building a fantasy world, a sci-fi world like Sun Eater, worldanvil.com has everything you need to organize everything in your brain and give you the tools you would need completely for free. So just go check them out on worldanvil.com. Rich,
Hey, if you're really big into D&D, map building, story crafting, getting the family lineages just right, and a nice UI that is pleasing to the eye, check this out. If you're writing your next fantasy sci-fi novel, this also is a great tool to help you out. Go check them out for free. Free tool. And if you really like them, you can also give them money.
use our code Ramble. Ramble, Ramble at checkout to get 51% off. 51% off. Wow. 51% off of a yearly subscription to worldanvil.com. And again, go check them out. Great site that we've been working with them for a while. Very cool stuff.
They get money, we get money, you get cool product.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's insane. Now let's go back to a cool conversation with these lads. And Jared, do you find that to be true? You're writing a nonfiction book right now, right? Not fiction.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much that translates, but I know you love Ruocchio's prose, especially compared to Sanderson's, right? Because that was you said it on our first collab.
By the way, that dig is not us digging at Sanderson.
No.
We enjoy Sanderson's prose.
But you did bring it up.
But Jared doesn't. That's the person we're understand.
Yeah, that's true. I do not enjoy Sanderson's prose.
What is it about Ruocchio's prose? Do you think that's part of it or something else there of how he's able to describe these moments or just his regular dialogue in general?
Well, I think that one of the things, just first of all, that I like about the way that Christopher writes is that he's just going for it sometimes, right? There's like there's a sense of like, I'm just gonna swing for it, and even if it doesn't always land, it's like, man, at least you went for it. Like at least you tried. One of my biggest complaints with like this really like window pane prose, as it gets called, is this just like, it just leaves nothing there for me to even like savor for a second, right? And like, so sometimes you have like a dish and it's like a little too rich and you're like, that flavor didn't quite work out, but it was, at least it was like interesting enough that you didn't want to spit it out immediately. But this other writer who I have not named, it's like eating unsalted potato chips. Like you could eat an infinite amount and you'd never notice, but like it's also it's incredibly bland and it's just and it's uninteresting, and you're definitely not going to go up to someone and be like, man, you've got to try these potato chips.
That explains a lot. I do eat plain pasta quite a lot.
Yeah.
That explains a lot about me.
Well,
You should see a psychiatrist.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I've
function.
seen him order seconds of just plain pasta.
That's right.
The
Jonathan.
amazing thing for me about these moments, like the glimmer, the reflection in the eye, and that kind of thing, is like to look at another cinematic example is like Schindler's List, right? Like you can lose sight of the breadth of this tragedy, this genocide, until you see the little girl with the red coat. Then, oh my gosh, now it's an individual. And I think what amazes me when he's doing these things, and he does them quite a bit through the series, it always lends itself and dovetails itself so well with the theme work, because you have this personal journey, not just of Hadrian, but of others, and these huge bombastic things happening around them. And at the same time, some of the theme work is very introspective and personal. Questions of faith and where do I fit and who do I am, and so much so that by the seventh book, you just have your lead character walking around asking everyone that'll listen, "Am I a good man?" So it's like it's the juxtaposition actually works in light with the themes as well.
Yeah. Rich, did you want to say another big moment, or do you want to get into characters or themes? What do you think?
I mean, there's so many. I think this will tie into both.
But go for it.
Both the big moment and also themes. One of the top. It's I think it's probably the top moment of the entire series for me, but ask me on a different day. Is chapter 40 of Disquiet Gods, when Hadrian finally meets the Quiet face to face, and he meets him at the end of time. That entire sequence, if I get to call that a singular moment, is it's one of the best chapters I've ever read, bar none. That moment is, I was very worried for when I first started reading the book, Disquiet Gods, of going, like when they started off, like the first act was battling, a divinity. We're battling
God,
an angel, a fallen angel. That's what I'm going, this seems like what the end of the book should be. Why are we starting here? How the hell can we go from here? And just the additional thing of at the start of chapter 40 or 39, really, of we've already seen Hadrian die. So repeating it again, and just the first time he dies in Howling Dark, we get mystery. He dies and we go, okay, what does this mean? We get to ask a bunch of questions. The second time he dies, we can't do that anymore. He can't pull the same trick twice. So he dies, and instead of getting more questions, we get answers. And how he masterfully does that, of the fact that chapter justifies the entire rest of the series. The fact that you're asking yourself from the very beginning of the first chapter of, oh my, wait, we got the very end of the series in the first chapter? Well, the funny question to ask is like, well, why am I reading the series? I already know the ending. What's the point? And the fact that that's the question. That is the ultimate question of this series. And we get that answered in that book, in that chapter. It blew me away.
Oh yeah, that's why it's so hard to say for me. I don't know which is my favorite, the sixth or seventh piece. I keep thinking back and forth between the two, and it's so tough. I know, John, you're on the same brink as well. But
absolutely, because of chapter 40, and then Orphan, and then at the end, and all of that. Like there's so much that comes at you in Disquiet Gods that you've been waiting for.
What did you all think with the second? Because same exact experience as Rich of another death. Well, you're doing the same thing. You get that little flag of what's going to happen here. And how do you all feel about the direction of that? Because that's a very pivotal scene in the series, and that has to somewhat work for you to buy into the end of the series in a way. So yeah, John, did you want to start with that, of that moment being so significant?
I mean, I loved it because I'm a big cosmic horror fan.
Yeah.
So for me, even when you start out with, the Quiet and the Watchers are these placeholders for the elder ones and the old god, like what are we looking at here? And then by the time you get to chapter 40 in Disquiet Gods, it's like you're taking those ideas and you're kind of dressing them up in in more like a Judeo-Christian type of clothing, right? Like it's like, oh, well, this is very much the story of the fallen angels, and some of them got really tired of what their jobs were and wanted to go, wanted to have a little bit of a career change. And it's like, it was really an interesting way to look at it and an interesting way to bring it back. And then the complexity of the characters as well with that, because looking through your Bible or other texts like that, it's like there's anyone that's been called on by a burning bush or an angel standing next to an egg that is the quiet, giving instructions. I mean, usually that person walks away with a lot of doubts and questions, and all the way through, Hadrian has those. And I loved the part of that even though he makes that choice, he makes that decision in chapter 40, moving forward, he still has doubts. He still has questions. He still has, am I a good man? Have I done everything I can? Is this really what my path is? Is this really what you want from me? All those types of classical questions that we've had, looking through the questions of faith and what it means to us and how we would respond to it if we were tasked to do something like that. If we were Abraham and tasked to give up a son, would we have questions? Would we be able to rise to that? And he never loses that complexity, even after it's all spelled out for him in chapter 40, which I so appreciated. So I thought it was handled. I thought it was a great nod to cosmic horror. I thought it was handled extremely well, character-wise and thematically and everything. So I thought it was done exceptionally well. And I honestly didn't have that much of a worry, because I was into it just to see, give me the Watchers in the quiet. I've been waiting. That's what I want. So
Definitely.
I was all about it.
Do you guys want to hear my most contrarian take about Sun Eater? I'm not even totally sure I believe this,
Yes.
but
That's the best way to start a sentence.
I think you could get rid of the Watchers, you could get rid of the quiet, and the story would be just as good. I think you could just totally eliminate that stuff. I think you could totally. And this is probably why, Disquiet Gods is not my favorite book of the series. It's a little closer to the bottom. That wasn't necessarily why I was reading it. For me, the biggest reveal moment in the series all come in Shadows Upon Time, and it's too early that you get fairly early on. It's the revelation that the Chantry are using artificial, they have daemons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then or daimons or whatever however they're saying it. And then that Earth still exists and is in fact this weird, there's this extra Chantry government, right? Mm-hmm. And that part for me was huge. I loved that stuff. Awesome. I was messaging
but Jared,
Christopher as I was reading.
I'll go you one further. You have that book. You have it.
Wait.
The Watchers in the Quiet?
Yeah.
This is a first person. What about any religious person that is struck by a burning bush and is leaned this far into fanaticism? It's did this really happen? Did he really dodge this many bullets? He's the one telling us this. We don't know. Mm-hmm. It's quite possible the Quiet and the Watchers aren't there except for in his noggin.
I would say I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, but that's not true. My entire career is yucking people's yum. But but I guess what it is the big cosmic stuff wasn't necessarily why I was in love with Hadrian's story in the first place. And I think he became less personally relatable to me as that began to be emphasized. Now, look, I totally will admit here that I'm way out on a limb, because apparently I'm the only fan of this series who thinks this. I'm literally the only person. But but I think it ties into why one of the things I love about the series, which is that where I think Christopher's strongest is when he's doing court politics.
Oh yeah, definitely
100%.
Okay,
yeah.
And that and the Chantry stuff and the Earth actually existing just makes the court politics way more interesting in Shadows Upon Time than it's ever been. Demon White's my favorite of the series, and I think this is where you start seeing the kind of machinations of the court more, and obviously that carries through in the rest. I guess the only one that doesn't really have that is probably Kingdoms of Death, because that's mostly just
torture.
Yeah, it's
let's torture Hadrian
politics,
for the whole
but
book.
It's just Yeltsin politics, which is
yeah. But it's less of like Hadrian like weaving his way through the politics and just being like, so when do they eat me? You know, like, and so all of the stuff with the Chantry made all of that court politics stuff much more interesting and much more nuanced and have more stakes to it. It wasn't just power plays anymore. It was like, oh no, like I've got to tear this whole thing down.
Yeah.
Right. In order for humanity to really be saved. I've probably said enough about this.
I love that we get both. Jared. Like that's the thing is,
like
it's so expertly done. Of maybe to some degree, you're right. Of I think it's a highlight for me, but yeah, both are integral to the story. But the fact that you can go into this series and you can like it for just the political machination. It is so good on that. It doesn't lean entirely on just the philosophical of like the celestial type of stuff, that it actually does go into the more political machinations and does it so expertly.
Let me rephrase it like this. If a Sun Eater series that did not have the big like celestial stuff in it, I would still think is very good. A Sun Eater series that had all of that, but didn't have like the court politics and didn't have the kind of political intrigue and personal stakes like that would not be good.
Yes.
And so I do see it as like more essential. It's what makes it's what like kicks the story up actually into like a much more interesting story in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, I also understand big giant space demons are cool for a certain
it's
kind
John's
of
happy place.
The space demons matter because we spent all this time with Hadrian. And the moment of when the Quiet says like, you do know how it ends. Why would and Hadrian asks himself like, why would I continue on? Why would I? And it's because maybe he will see Valka again because of Cassandra, because of love. And like, there's we've heard that answer before of like, hey, what the answer to nihilism being love. Like that's not new. We got everything everywhere all at once. That's quite literally the answer.
Oh, by the way, that's a perfect movie. By the way,
it's a fantastic movie. But I care so that's not new. Well, but it's impactful because of everything else, like you're saying, Jared, of like the political story and everything else with Hadrian and the personal connection we have with him. That's why it matters.
And that debate between free will and determinism, essentially, in that chapter, that's what it's also highlighting is, hey, now, personally, I like to believe I have free will, but the determinist line of thought of, well, I can't prove it wrong. These are things that, we're aware of, and you see this a lot in a bunch of epic fantasies. Is providence a thing? Is fate always determined? Do you have any choice in the matter? And I think the series as a whole handles that extremely well and in an interesting way. Of that chapter 40, but also in Shadows Upon Time, we also get I'm just throwing out things at this point, but the ship of Theseus of what makes us. Are we all just material, or are we the soul? I think this series for me does hit all of those notes, which you're right, Jared, to say that without caring about Hadrian, none of this philosophical stuff really is grounded in a story. So
there was one philosophical note that I wish had been stressed more because it shows up early on in the series, but it gets de-emphasized a little bit later, which is that early on, Hadrian actually wonders whether or not he's really human. He makes such a big deal over being like pure, like not using machines, like he's not like Valka, or he's not like these sorcerers, he's not like the Sealson, like. But then he's like, but wait, like I have to be born in a vat. Like, and my kids are born in vats too, and we're so engineered that are we really human compared to these lower classes that basically are just ordinary human beings, and that kind of just disappears over time in the story. It just doesn't seem to appear in Hadrian's mind as much, which is a little bit surprising given that he gets an entirely new body that is unlike his original body, which should have also made you wonder, like, so then isn't that kind of just like God did to me what the extrasolarians do to themselves on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think
The question should have, I think, been
Yeah.
at least explored explored a little bit more. And to be clear, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when I'll say this is a thing that I disliked about the series, this is like where it's like it left me wanting a little bit more,
Mhm.
rather than like talking about
Mhm.
wins and truth about what I disliked about it. Where it's just like I definitely didn't
Yeah.
want more.
I think the most or closest we get to that is Howling Dark dives into that. That's the main theme of Howling Dark with the ship of Theseus. Like that's definitely there. I think Disquiet Gods, the most we get with the, again, ship of Theseus and what are we made of, is when he meets Velka, and is Velka actually Velka? And it's more the question, not about himself, Hadrian, but is that really Velka? And his answer there being, we're more than our memories, we're more than our material, we're each a story. And that's I think that's him answering the question, but I do
It also ties into it, or before his answer is, you are a story, a continue, and the fact that the extrasolarians, when they split their bodies and they do like, to some degree, they end their story and start a new one, or they diverge. There's now two separate stories. And so like, how can you say this clone when the other also exists? The other died, and so it feels like this incontinuous story. And so that's where he starts. And then when he does meet the Quiet, when he acknowledges like, no, this is my God, his answer to whether he's human is because we are stories inside of like that God is telling, that the only person that can actually, restart your story, the only person that starts and ends it is God. And so if man is messing around with it, that's not valid, and that's not like, that's false. Like the only being that could actually transfer the soul from one body to another would be God. And so that's how this is how Hadrian interprets it, and like he is one continuous story rather than
then there's
the
those
extrasolarians.
interesting questions of you go to the doctor, can I don't know. It's even like, how minute. At what point does it change? At what point are you no longer yourself? Which is the whole question and point.
Yeah.
But
Or like with the Exalted basically replace their body parts over and over again. And I think that's the more interesting comparison than the extrasolarians, like the Minos people who split and things.
Right.
But it would be the Exalted, who Hadrian is basically disgusted by.
Yeah.
It's like it's total revulsion.
That's the main pivot points with the I think the examples he shows them in the extremes of, okay, look, if you just change everything, he's disgusted by the Exalted on this end, and then you have the Cielsen who represent, they only believe they're this soul, and they're trapped in this evil world, and everyone must die to escape. The whole Gnostic viewpoint there. So are we just soul or are we just material? And the answer is those are both wrong in their extremes, and it's somewhere in the middle. And that
to some degree, your experience through the world and what makes you is your body. Your body is the filter of how you experience the world. And so if you change the body, to some degree, you change you, and vice versa. And your memories, being revolted by when the extrasolarians, especially where they talk about removing memories or adding fake memories to you to make you a fundamental, like, I can understand that revulsion to that extreme level of like, what are you anymore? If even your memories, like, you self-implant them or remove them, what are you? Like, you are not the same person anymore.
John?
I think it's a couple things. I love space demons. I love them. Yeah, I mean, you can interpret it like I said to Jared. You can have them. I love it. It's great for me, and I totally agree with Jared. Like, the court politics are so good. Before we completely move away from big moments, I actually had to DM Christopher for this one. In Shadows Upon Time, when the Emperor had the main chantry priest kiss his ring, like, that moment was everything. I would do anything to play that scene. Like, I could imagine, like, get some RSC. Let's get David Tennant, Ray Fiennes. Let's get that level of performer to play that scene, and it would be phenomenal. What a moment.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a huge battle. That moment and what it represents and what it does, amazing. So some of the small, intimate moments are still huge in this because of the court politics and everything that's going on, that I just wanted to echo Jared there.
And the other John, to keep you on that point, just to emphasize that, who would have thought the climax of a book is a slap? That's it.
Right? That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And
I'm
it
totally with you.
was epic.
It was epic. Yeah.
It was epic.
Yeah, John, I don't want to derail you, John, but I agree. Yes.
And the other, I want to come, and I'll let go of this, but the interesting thing thematically about, like Jared was saying, I would have loved some more of like what we started. I love that theme moved. It didn't stay static. In the beginning. Yeah, am I even human? I'm born in a vat, like Jared was very well pointing out there. And then after that, it's like I came back and I've got ceramics in this hand. Like, he's got these questions moving forward. And by the end of the series, it's morphed and changed. What is human? He's grown. He's had a child. He's been an old man. Granted, not forever, but he's different. He understands the vessel he left port in is not the vessel that's going to dock at the other side of this ocean. You're going to change. Your ship will be different just from living a life. That has somewhat been answered for him as he's moved on this journey. The more interesting question in this theme as we move on is, what is human? Lorian's an extrasolarian now. How do I feel about Lorian? These Cielson that are following me around and starting to question their own belief system. And I'm a godfather to their son. What does that mean about a soul and humanity? Like, this theme of what is human actually travels and moves as he travels and moves through his life, because he understands this is just a shell. It's just a ship. It's just an instrument. The sailor inside is what is constant, and it's not constant because of the journey. It will be changed forever. So it's not going to be the same when it docks as when it takes off. So that theme is still there by the end. Very much for him walking around asking everyone, am I a good man? It's still there. It's just moved and changed to how he looks at it.
He is.
You really love that he asked, am I a good man?
I love it because I ask that question every day. So I have, that's big for me, Jared.
Yeah.
I
love that too.
I do love the two answers we get effectively in the series of the main ones. Gibson, Hadrian asking Gibson, am I a good man? And Gibson telling him, the fact that you're asking the question is probably a pretty good sign. Bad men generally don't ask themselves, am I a good man? Like, generally speaking. And then the Quiet, the Quiet gives almost the backhanded answer of, like, Hadrian asks the Quiet, am I a good man? And the Quiet tells him, shut up. Like, trust the plan. It's not about you. I am taking that burden off yourself. Stop asking yourself that question. That's dumb. It's a dumb question.
The interesting about that too, because John, as you're saying, am I a good man? Am I a good man? I think we all do ask ourselves that question. Am I being a good person right now? We all want to be selfless. Sure. We don't want to be prideful. The way the Quiet answers that in a way also says, is asking that question a bit prideful? Are you so worried about your image or you being worthy of being good? Mm-hmm. And I always think, it's always a good. So I like that we get both things. The Gibson answer, like you said, of, hey, am I a good man? Well, you're asking. That's a good thing. You're asking that. But then Quiet pulling back and saying, shut up, because are you thinking about yourself too much? Yeah, this series ruined a lot of themes in every other book for me, because I don't know what else I want explored. I don't know. I really, and we didn't even drop into anything else, like the unlearning of history and all that stuff. Okay.
The importance of story. What about that theme? The importance of story to define
everything in
who we are.
Yeah. Series.
The great figures, movers of history. That history is a series of individuals moving things forward rather than systems or groups. Like, it constantly of how all of the important moments, like the big turning point moments, is not like a society rising up or like a collective group. It is hyper focused of, it's one person's actions. It's generally like, it's so focused. The fact that the death of the empire is not Hadrian raising a large army and overthrowing the empire. No, it's one lone soldier shooting a,
Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Basically. But he kills the slave. The one lone soldier kills the unknown slave, and the empire dies. That is, it's the movers like William of this. You look at the grand empire and all the different fightings between him and the Chantry, and you look at this big system, and ultimately it's William the man that has held up against the Chantry and has held so long, and that the everything is falling apart around the Empire, and William grabbing it by the fist, and in his final moments being able to make the final sacrifice to help take down the Cielson. And like, it's not the Empire, it was him, it was William that mattered in the most critical moments. And it's the same thing with Hadrian. I love that hyper focus of the individuals that move history.
And learning that William is fighting a war on two fronts.
Yeah.
So maybe he actually could have, if it were just the Cielson, maybe he could have handed off the crown earlier, and it wouldn't have mattered. But it's the war with the Chantry that really only he is prepared to fight, especially because Alexander is a real bastard and and totally sells out.
You just love to hate him.
An incredibly hateable character in a really great way, from like bratty kid who just wants to learn from his hero, who gets spurned and never lets it go, to then, selling out to humanity's greatest threat from within.
I thought he was so dweeby in Demon in White. Like I didn't know how to take it, as in obviously he came across that way, but it was just such a great turnaround in the political machinations of Shadows Upon Time. And a point about that with the Chantry and the shift in the Chantry over time was also really interesting to see, of how at first they're villainous, then they have a point about technology. Oh wait, no, they are I also love that shift throughout the series too. Sorry, Jed, I wanted to give you a chance. This is your favorite series of all time, right? It's stapled, or favorite sci-fi.
No, it was my favorite sci-fi series, and then after Shadows Upon Time, it is now my favorite series.
It is a lot of that, because like, what theme stuck out to you that helps solidify that?
Yeah, well, I'll get to the themes in a moment, but there's something I wanted to mention with the second death thing. Because as soon as we have like the second death in book 6, it made me think about chiastic plot structure. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this idea at all, but like chiasmus is basically a literary technique where you might say, fair is foul and foul is fair, right? So A is B and B is A. Basically, it is about like reversing and mirroring things. And you can apply it at the level of a sentence, but you can also apply it at the level of a series.
And what's that called again? What's that
chiastic.
Chiastic plot structure.
That's the thing I'm frustrated by with sentence structure.
Got it. Yep.
Yes.
Chiastic, okay.
It's a pet peeve of mine.
I'm going to write that down so I
when
remember.
It's done well,
yes.
I think it is quite great. So anyway, there's a book that the scholar John Granger wrote about the Harry Potter series ages ago. And it's basically, his whole theory is that 7-book series is chiastically structured, where book 1 mirrors book 7, book 2 mirrors book 6, book 3 mirrors book 5, and then book 4 is the centerpiece for it. And so as I was going through Shadows Upon Time, I sort of started reflecting about this idea, and I thought, are there interesting mirrored parallels going on between the books here? And I realized, oh yeah, hang on a second. In book 1, we think the Chantry is the villain. In book 7, we know the Chantry is the villain. In book 2, Hadrian dies and comes back to life. In book 6, Hadrian dies and comes back to life. In book 3, a lot of that is about Hadrian beginning to have his bond and his relationship with the emperor. And book 5, as we discussed before, ends with him slapping the emperor, right? And there are actually, as I was kind of going through it, there were so many parallels that I was finding between, the corresponding pairs of the series. And I think it's one of the reasons why the series as a whole feels, so well integrated and cohesive and inevitable in a lot of ways, right? Because he's constantly finding ways in, the back half of the series to mirror and reflect things from the first half of the series. And then book 4, very similar with the Harry Potter series, again, it serves as that turning point inflection where, in the case of book 4 in Harry Potter, that's when Voldemort comes back and the series becomes a lot darker and you realize this is what it's really all about. And in book 4 of Sun Eater, Kingdoms of Death, it's the same thing, right? Hadrian is with Siriani the whole time. It's really establishing why he has to do this thing. And it's kind of this midpoint of the whole arc he goes through of being like, we can make peace with these Cielson to, oh no, I have to genocide them. I have to wipe them out. And
you add on top of that,
one of the reasons,
book 1 and book 7, book 1 being Hadrian thinking, hey, maybe there can be peace with these Cielson. Maybe we can talk and maybe we can actually work things out eventually. And book 7, you give that little bit of hope of without the Watchers the Cielson may have a chance.
They would
Absolutely.
have had it.
Even another one, right? It's like book 2. Who do we meet in book 2? Khan Sagara. Where are we going? Vorgosis. What are we spending time on? The Demiurge. Book 6. Where do we go? We go to Vorgosis.
You're
Who's the
blowing my
major
mind
character?
right now,
Khan
Jed.
Sagara.
Book
Demiurge
three.
is there.
Book 3 is about the beginning, the kind of pinnacle of the legend of Hadrian Marlowe. Of like his spends a lot of time with his legendary status. Book 5 is him recapturing that and kind of almost the tail end of his legend. He gets to see how far removed from his legend, how much he has fallen, and at the very end of like culminating it and bringing it back again to full strength.
Book 1 it begins with the story of a boy trying to flee to become a scholiast. Book 7 ends with the hero fleeing to the scholiast.
Oh, okay.
That's entirely Aristotelian. I mean, when your arc completely circles around and comes back to the beginning, we're going all the way back to poetics at this point.
But Jed, what do you do? Okay, what if he ended up, the publisher didn't have him split books?
Well, that's where my theory falls down a little bit, right?
Yeah,
so
what?
It was
No,
providence.
the author is dead. It doesn't matter about what he would have intended.
Oh, here we go again.
It's about the work as it was presented to you, and the work as it was
whatever
presented
you
to
want,
has that structure. That's all that matters.
But that is
I'm
the
really
thing. I
curious
think this accidentally led to something more beautiful. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy crap.
I agree. Even like, another parallel is like in Demon in White, so much of it is about like the relationship between Hadrian and Valka, and the Emperor's like, I've got Selene here, like let's get something going on between the two of you. And in book 5, Ashes of Man, it's like you kind of get their relationship come to its fruition. You have Valka be like, let's have kids, and then immediately dies like the next chapter or whatever. But there is so just the more I was looking through it, the more parallels were kind of coming in. And like I think I'd be really curious to ask Christopher if this was intentional on his behalf, or whether it was a happy accident, or whether I'm reading into it too much. But either way, I think it's something that gives the whole series this tremendous sense of cohesion, right? Because you just have this sense where it's like, when we go back to Vorgosos in book 6, it feels right. You're like, yes, I somehow knew we were going to return here. And crucially, it's not about doing the exact same thing. The whole point of chiastic plot structure is that you present a similar scene or a similar sort of setup, but the character does something different that shows their growth. So the first time that Hadrian goes to Vorgosos, he is, I guess he's not like a completely naive young boy. He's like in his 50s at this point or whatever. He has a little bit more experience, but he is still going in very much inferior to Khan Sagara. Whereas book 6, when he goes back in and confronts Khan Sagara again, he's almost risen to the same level in a lot of ways. And he has a power that Khan Sagara doesn't know himself. And so this constant sort of symmetrical structure that then allows you to really see the ways in which Hadrian is growing and progressing. Even the thing where it's, the first time he goes to Forum, right? He is battered around by all these outside forces, and, you were mentioning before, Jared, all the politics of it, which I love. Like, that's probably one of my favorite aspects of the series as well. When he goes back in the last book, which, isn't like a perfect mirror between book 3, book 5, whatever, but when he goes back in the last book, he's like, no, you're going to do what I tell you to do. Otherwise, I'm going to blow up this planet. Like, he has grown in such an interesting way. And I think that's what really elevates a series for me. Like, it's fine to have a series where every book is sort of just a standalone thing and they're interesting in their own regard. But with Sunita, I think the sum of the parts is, the whole is far greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that chiastic plot structure is a big part of that for me.
I love that, Jed.
I'm so happy you blew my mind here. I did not think of it that way, and now I can't not think of it that way.
Even just that first meeting with Khan Sagara, I mean, one's on a throne and one is, one's trying to get something. I need something from him. And by the flip side, when he comes back around, Khan Sagara's been like madly cloning him to get what the half mortal has. So
Yep.
it's the tables have entirely turned. Yeah.
Book one ends with, "Hey, and this is an ending reader." And oh, wait, they all do that.
They all
never
do.
mind. Okay,
Yeah.
that's that
The
one's
first
not
the first book starts with words. And
Yeah, what starts, how general can we get with this? They're all in English. What?
The first book starts with like Hadrian's perspective, and the last book ends with Hadrian's perspective.
Actually, it doesn't start with his
Mind-blowing.
perspective though.
But it doesn't start with his
Yeah, it
perspective
doesn't start-
entirely.
But okay, I want to object a little bit to this discussion. Not to Jed's point. That was nice. You were like, let's talk about big moments, and we basically just didn't talk about Shadows Upon Time.
Oh, I mean, the biggest moments happen in Shadows Upon Time.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
it's like, but you
Yeah.
know, this is the big
Yep.
Sun Eater retrospective,
Yes.
and we're like,
You're right.
Hey,
no.
we got plenty to
Well-
go down. Jared,
Yeah.
start us off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, okay. One opening battle scene. We get this great shift of perspectives, which I was like, "Way to go, Christopher!" I think this is cool.
Yeah.
Two. So and like just seeing battle from the Eriktani or whatever the bird people from their perspective, awesome. Then the revelation that they have diamonds, and like that's like suddenly the whole story shifted, and like I was so mad when that happened because I was like I should have been able to see that coming
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it makes so much
Yeah.
sense once you see it.
Yep.
Like and you're like, of course, like why didn't I ever question that the Chantry would be doing this?
Mhm.
But I think for me, like the big like, oh no, like this is such a different world is the here soon changed conversations.
Yes.
you're
those were so
learning-
cool.
Like that there's like this like extra like thing on top of the Chantry that actually runs the universe, like runs the galaxy, that there are temples, that Washington is fully intact. There are barbarian tribes that they go and like to grab women from for their coming of age ceremony. Like there's all of this stuff going on. And I'm really glad actually that we didn't see Earth directly. Because what I was afraid of was that the book was going to end near on Earth, or that we were going to go have like a thing there, and it left me wanting like really hungry for more. Where I felt like this universe is still really big.
Don't show
And
Cthulhu,
so,
right? Or Cthulhu. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like I just can't. I don't want to. I'm glad he didn't touch it.
Mhm.
And maybe if he returns the Sun Eater, we'll see Earth, you know, through the lens of other characters or something like that much later on, because we know Hadrian's not coming back into the story. At least that's what he's saying so far. But it left me like feeling like, oh, like that was a really big reveal. I think just like from a craft perspective, it gave the sense like the world a kind of lived in feel
Mhm.
where because one of the problems you're going to face when you write a big space opera is that the world has to start small because you have a character on a single planet, and then you have to impress scale, and Christopher does scale very well. It actually takes a long time to get places. Warp is incredibly fast, and it still takes years or decades to get planets. And he shows he does that primarily. He shows scale through Hadrian's aging, especially before he gets like his new body, right? Like Hadrian's becoming an old man, the world is moving on, and so he does scale really well. And what I was afraid was like if we went to Earth, it'd be like all the planets I wanted to see I've seen, right? And the universe doesn't feel big if you've seen every planet, because and there's a lot of planet hopping in the last two books. You know, like there's a lot of like fast planet hopping, and so I was worried that scale, but having Earth, the kind of center of the human world, right, or like the human like imagination, not be shown, and to show that it's actually much weirder. I don't know, like the most vivid imagery in my mind was conjured up just trying to think about what Earth looked like.
Yeah.
And it was actually more vivid in my mind than any of his descriptions of the actual existing, like of the stuff that we've actually seen. So the revelation that Earth still exists, and that there's this whole other culture, there's this whole other way of life that's there, that there are people in the order and thing, you know, all of this. That was huge for me.
And it's
it made
lovely
me
that it
feel-
doesn't feel like it's promised that we need to know it's there. That wasn't a focus of the series of, hey, we're going to go back to Earth. So you can do that without showing it. And it feels, oh, let your imagination run. Because if that was a point of the series of, hey, we're going to blow up the sun, and you don't, then you're going to go, what the hell? I was promised sun eating.
Well,
But in this case, it's not is
You got
superfluous
a
maybe the
nugget.
wrong word. Yeah.
You got a nugget of it of Kingdoms of Death. Of the Emperor mentions Earth. Of like, oh no, that book is on Earth. And you go, wait a minute. I thought Earth was not
I was so
Yeah.
excited for
I
when
thought Earth
heard,
was gone.
I was so excited when that line came in. I was like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, what's going on?" Yeah.
But I want to add on to that, Jared. The whole sense of scale, and I completely agree with you, and I love that. So I think there's another problem with scale is if you get too big, you remove the personal attachment, and sometimes it's like, oh, we're in brand new planet number 75, and ultimately it's too big. I can't connect with it. What I love, and I think the best example of it, is the final battle in Shadows Upon Time. With the beginning of the battle, being like the world ship comes in and destroys this battleship that Hadrian watched being built in Kingdoms of Death, and that being mentioned of like him going down the planet and recognizing like, oh, that's the ship that I got to see built when I was with Valka on the planet.
Yeah.
That like those level of connections of like being able to take us back to moments that we remember previous in this series, getting to go back to Annika, all the different sense of scale of. I love the repeat visits we get the thing that blew my mind early on was in Demon in White of actually going to the library where Hadrian currently is in the present.
In Colchis, yep.
Yeah, on Colchis. That for some reason I felt like you couldn't do that. That was beyond my imagination that could actually happen. Like, no, that's supposed to be future Hadrian. Like, that's
You find that later. That's
You find
a plot
it way
point, right?
later.
You already told us we blew up the sun. Why are you giving me more?
It feels like it's supposed to be completely separate. And the fact that we get to see it early on, and he goes, as I am writing this, I am looking across at the same painting I passed. Like, that level of connection of past and future
very cool.
blew my mind of scale. And
I think a great example of this too is placing one of the big fights on Danu, where you discover that the people there might be like the bastards of the royal family because they all have red hair, and then you're reminded that Switch has red hair and he's from Danu, right? And so it just gets to the kind of, but of course we're never going to see Switch again. Switch is long dead.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we don't know exactly, but Switch is long dead. Like and his first like real friend, really, basically, is long dead, but he gets to kind of be reminded. So then when he sees these kids with red hair that come and are on the ship. What's Karn Cigar's ship called? I should know this. Like
Demiurge.
the Demiurge.
Demiurge. For some reason, I keep wanting to call it Nomen, but is there another? But I don't know why. But anyway, yeah, Demiurge. He's on a Demiurge. The kids are there, right? And so like there's this like little bit of reminder of his past too.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't feel too forced. I think it was just like a nice way to add like a little bit of like of a personal touch to it. Yeah, I think he does this really well to kind of like, Jed was saying, you see contrast through. I mean, you see scale through contrast. Like it's big and then it's small again. It's big and it's small again. Because actually, a lot of Sun Eater takes place in very cramped spaces. Like it takes place in, even if they're large ships, they're still ships, right? Like there are places that are confining you in. So the galaxy is massive, but where you have personal agency to go about in is usually almost always very constrained.
Yeah.
And the fact we return to Annika and Colchis in several books, you get familiar with these planets and these places. That's lovely too. Sorry, John, I cut you off.
Yeah.
No. But I think it's interesting that I think it's something that I see a lot of in Greek myth, kind of, where it's like the scale, and it's almost like it's the touch of the celestial, right? We have the Watchers and the Quiet, but also Hadrian is so well. Like long lived. These Palatines are so long lived. The Emperor is so long lived, thousands of years. They're basically demigods, and it's the old trick of like a myth that you tell a story about the gods, but they have, they're very interested in human things. They have love and lust, and we can connect to them, and through connecting something larger than ourselves, we learn something about ourselves. So it's like that intimate is very much there, even though these characters are like grand and sweeping and basically celestially touched in a way. So it's always just that you never lose the intimate, but you have the amazing scale. And the other thing beyond scale that I was amazed at is the end of every book. You completely reinvented what was going on. At the end of book 1, he hears whisperings through space and time, and he slides through a crack in space and time and sees something beyond his understanding, right? So everything is reinvented. By the end of book 1, it's like, oh, our status quo is not what we thought our status quo is. But at the end of book 2, he's beheaded and comes back to life. Everything is like, holy crap, this, you just shuffled all the deck chairs on the Titanic. Everything's different now. At the end of book 3, and it happens over and over. At the end of every book, he's able to reestablish a status quo. He's able to take an arc somewhere and completely change the rules of the game that he's building, and still have all these it's quite an achievement.
And then the end of book 7, John, what did you think of us getting the sun at the sun eating at, I think there's 10 chapters afterwards, where it was placed in the book, and the little denouement we got afterwards? What do you think of that, and that being the ending? Is that where you expected it to be before reading it?
No. But,
Okay.
and I don't think Christopher expected it to be that. We heard at the big event, right? He was saying, oh, I kind of cut 3 chapters here. And I kind of love that, because I think it's like a page straight out of the Russian Masters, right? Like, of course there's more story. There's always more story. But this one ends when I say it ends. This window closes when I say it closes, and you get what I was going to give you. And the denouement was placed perfectly. I thought it was just beautifully done.
Want to pass it over to Jared with, you talk about the political machinations, the culmination of everything that blew my mind at this aspect of, with everything Hadrian's doing. For the most part, he plays the political when it is absolutely necessary, because he is hyper-focused of, no, I am not playing the Game of Thrones. I will play it enough so I can beat the Cielsen. That is the goal. Save humanity, defeat the Cielsen. But as the final book of him trying to maneuver around the Chantry and play the politique, and seeing this opportunity of becoming the emperor, and realizing that the final chapters at the end of realizing he can literally come back to life. He is a type of immortal. He has these divine powers. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the Chantry beat him, because for centuries they've been playing the politicking game. They have sown the seeds of misinformation and ruined his image and his legend for hundreds of years. And no matter, he could slaughter everyone in that room and he would still lose. The Chantry beat him.
Yeah.
But in the same sense of okay, Hadrian lost that war. Or maybe you'd like to think of it as a battle, but realizing but now the Chantry is I've beaten the Chantry in the long run as well. The Chantry always had to be in the dark. They could control things by being in the shadows. They are now forced into the light, and realize they're not going to last. Them and the Empire are dead. They're dead systems walking. I absolutely love how bittersweet this ending is of the political games,
perfect,
the fact that Hadrian played these games and he ultimately lost. And it makes so much sense.
So the game that Hadrian's playing throughout the series changes, though, because when he's young, he hates the distinction between classes, right? And he becomes much more comfortable with it. It's a source of tension with his relationship with Valka. Valka's like, you used to hate these people. And now he's like, well, I actually see, blah, blah. And there's lots of ways to interpret that. Someone gets proximity to power and suddenly likes power. But there, I think he comes from it from a bit more of an earnest place. He genuinely thinks there's something to the empire, right? And so he's not in the business of overthrowing the Solon Empire. He wants the Solon Empire to thrive and to be better. So he actually gets what he wanted in book 1, really, which is a destruction of the way eventually the Chantry will crumble. Eventually the Solon Empire with its sort of hierarchy will crumble. He gets what he wants, but he gets what he wanted, but it's actually no longer what he wants. And that makes it, I think, even a little harder for him, because there would have been an earlier version of Hadrian that was very happy with this outcome. I think if you told young Hadrian there's a way to destroy the genetic keys, and then the Chantry
Right.
and I think if you had asked Hadrian of book 1, to do that, he would have done
Oh,
it.
you've been all for it.
And by the time we get here, and I actually said this in your server, like in a way, like the person who gets everything she wants is Valka. The problem with that is that Valka dies before she gets any of it. So because Valka hates the Empire, and eventually she wants a child with Hadrian, right? So like she wants to understand this language and like the secrets of these ruins, right? We get all of the things that Valka wants. But Valka doesn't basically get to enjoy any of them.
Well,
We also know Valka will eventually meet the Quiet.
Well, also depending on how you take it, maybe 20 to 30 Valkas did get to live to see that. I mean, the clones have her memories from Howling Dark.
Yeah.
So there are, I mean, not our Valka, but yes, a Valka clone.
Valka Prime,
Valka Prime
did not, right?
Yeah.
And she basically thinks her career is a joke because at some point she realizes it's founded on this huge misunderstanding. The moment she decides that she wants to have a kid with Hadrian, she dies. She thinks that the Empire is basically going to keep thriving, and in fact, like she might even wonder if like other people like me work with the Empire, isn't this going to be our downfall, right? And people like her do end up dying a lot of the time, but eventually, yeah, like she's the radical of the relationship, right? She's like she's the actual radical, and she gets the destruction that she wanted.
We have been speaking a lot about Hadrian, now Valka, now a little bit of Alexander the Emperor. Are you guys on the same page as well? Where are the side characters weak in Sun Eater for you? Are they not the strongest suit of it? Like you're just talking about Valka. I really loved her character, but in general, what do you think of the side characters in Sun Eater?
Well, I like Valka. I like Selene a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And I like her. I like her a lot, and I have like a bit of like a speculation about Selene we could talk about in a second here, but I think she's great. I like Alexander as like a kind of secondary antagonist or whatever, but like the crew, right? Like in the Red Army, I struggle to tell them apart. I struggle to tell them apart in my head.
Who's Polino?
So I do think they I do think they are a little weaker, right? They're all kind of wisecracking.
Yeah.
And like there's just like a little bit of this where I don't think that was like the strongest part, and I don't think Cassandra's super strong.
Agreed.
I think she mostly exists for Hadrian to have someone to love. Like that's like what the function she plays in the story. She doesn't really stand on her own 2 feet very much as a character.
I would agree with you, but something that it helped me a little bit more with the final book of we do get more Cassandra moments in Shadows Upon Time, significantly more than the rest of it. There was a significant effort there. However, it still was lacking with her as her own character. The one thing that brought me around a little bit is realizing how much of Cassandra's character is there that we just don't get to see because it's Hadrian's perspective, and he doesn't see everything. He's not, or at the very least, not telling us. Especially at the very ending with Hadrian recognizing and, telling Cassandra, like, I know about you and Eduardo.
Yeah.
And he's known for a long time. To me, that was more of a signal of like, Cassandra is living her own life. There is a lot more to her that we just don't get to see. At the very least, like Hadrian probably Hadrian deliberately leaves out a lot. And I think part of like he leaves out a lot about Cassandra in a more personal manner. Like, hey, this is my story I want to tell, but I don't really want to share too much personal. Like, I don't want to air out everything about Cassandra's dirty laundry. One day I hope Cassandra will read this, and I want her to know how much I love her.
Let me
tell
give you
the rest
one,
of the universe all of the dirty details of like. So that's
let me give you one example
justification
that I would have liked to see. Cassandra does not have her arm replaced after it's cut off, right? And that is eventually, and then like there's a moment where Hadrian's like, and I now realize why she never wanted to replace her arm, right? So like this it's a very character defining moment. Actually, that's a huge choice to make, to not have like to not replace a limb. And I feel like that would have been, and it gets treated in the story as like a moment of self realization for Hadrian. And it would have been, I think, nice for that to be like a confrontation, right?
Have it be a
right,
Cassandra moment, not a Hadrian moment.
Yeah.
I think like that would have been a good moment, and it could have been a moment they have together because it's Hadrian telling the story, so it's going to be a conversation. But I think it would have been nice to maybe have like one or two of those, where she just gets to like assert herself a little bit more, because most of the time when she's asserting herself, it's like, no, Dad, I am going to fight with you. And he's like, no, you can't fight with me. And then she's like, but no, I will fight with you. And then guess what? Most of the time she ends up fighting with him. You know, like that interaction happens a lot, which is a very normal kind of parent thing too. You do understand, like you end up having the same fights with your kids over and over, except John and Jacob, they've never fought about anything except for, like, spell a character's name. Except John calls him every 2 days and says, Jacob, am I a good man?
No, more than that. It's more than that.
But you know, you do have like fights with your kids a lot, so it's actually that's actually probably pretty realistic. But yeah, to just give her one or two kind of big moments that she could have, where or even just not even big like fight moments, because she does have big moments in fights, but maybe one or two more like personal realizations or something where she like really makes a stand. Maybe actually sharply disagrees, not about tactics, but about like whether or not you should even listen to the quiet, you know, something like that, right? Because Hadrian's really still the only true believer, and that makes sense because he's like the only one who's like really seen the quiet. But everyone else kind of goes along with him because he's such a like force of personality. But you know who isn't usually taken in by like the person like that force of personality? His adult daughter. like you know like if anyone's going to be able to kind of like call him on his bullshit. Right, your editor can believe that out if you'd like or something. But you know, but if everyone's going to call him out on his bullshit, it would be his daughter, right? And I think maybe having a little bit more of that would have made her, like a little more fleshed out and a little more real.
Add on to that, this would actually be the change if I, you know, far be it from me to give suggestions to Ruocchio, but the thing that I probably would have liked to seen change. There are at least 3 distinct moments of Hadrian going off to, you know, self-sacrifice. Cassandra going, no, don't run off to self-sacrifice yourself. Take me with you. I will fight with you. And then him saying, like, basically, okay, Cassandra, I won't leave you behind. I think does it again. Okay, I won't leave you behind. And he does that 3 times, at least. I think there may be even more. But I would have appreciated that Cassandra reacts in the exact same way every single time of believes her dad. That basically says, hey, don't do that again. Hadrian says, okay. And he's like, okay, we're good again. I would have appreciated that different every time of an evolution. Like maybe by the 3rd time that Hadrian does it, she explodes and like, you know what? I can't stop you. Fine. Go die. Some type of anger of like, you have lied to me, Dad. Like I can't do this anymore. Some type of evolution over those times.
Yeah.
But the fact that final meeting between Cassandra and Hadrian is roughly the same kind of makeup that we had every other time, that is probably what
he doesn't want to make his daughter look bad. He wrote it differently on purpose.
Yeah, that's the headcanon.
She did blow up on him, but he wanted to make her look nice and perfect.
But I mean, think about there's a great moment that happens in this book with Selene, where she's just like, don't you understand? Like, I've been put on ice my entire life for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I still love you, you big fucking moron.
Yeah.
Like don't you get it? And it's a moment where Hadrian has to be like, oh, like she both does really love me and she's aware of the game she's playing. And suddenly you're like, this is a woman who could be empress.
Yes.
And so she's got like and she's no longer like the dumb pretty one. I mean, she never comes off as like dumb, actually, like naive. She might come off as like a little naive earlier on in the story. And that might, but you realize maybe that's how she just presents herself because she knows that's the game she's playing. So Selene actually grows much in a way where you start wondering about all of their previous interactions. How much of that was actually her calculating? How much of this was her playing within her brother's rules or her father's rules? And so like, that's a great moment. That's a great character moment. Definitely. It's good for Hadrian. Hadrian needs someone to tell him like that he's being an idiot. But also it's great for her. And that, imagine a parallel scene right? Where maybe you know, with Cassandra, where he's going to have some kind of moment like that.
Well, with Selene specifically, I think her character is the best example of unreliable Hadrian narrator.
Oh
Of
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
too many things of how that story goes between them that it feels wrong, of all of their interactions being like how standoffish Hadrian is, of him not touching her and not being involved, the emotional distance, and it not really making sense.
Oh, I would 100% believe that Selene is on Colchis with him.
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Add to here's 2 points in Shadows Upon Time that just, these are scenes, take it how you will. When the Demiurge is being attacked and invaded, that it's over the comms where it's like, okay, hey, where is Selene? Where is she? Like, we need to get her safe, and gets over the comm of like, hey, her knight has her barricaded in your room, Hadrian.
Yeah.
Very suspicious.
A friend of mine was pointing out that there's a scene, that there's a mention in Shadows Upon Time. He's not done with the book, where he mentions 2 cups.
There's 2 wine glasses.
Two wine
Yes,
glasses.
Two wine
that was,
glasses,
that was
to be
the
clear.
second one I was about to bring up.
Yes.
Yeah, the 2 wine, and I hadn't caught that. And but then as soon as he said that, I was just like, oh yeah, damn, Selene's there.
As soon as we
He's not far enough along, so I couldn't tell him.
Yes.
He's only like 30 chapters in, but
Oh,
or something. But I was like, oh, and he's like, what does that mean? What's the 2 cups? I'm like, finish the book, and I will immediately tell you what I think. What I think it means, because you just like unlocked it. But Selene is on Colchis with him. He says over and over. I mean, I didn't count them, right? I bet there's 5 moments in Shadows Upon Time where he's like, I do not know what became of Selene. Some say she is an Ash Maiden, and some say she was killed in like the Night of the Knives, or like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he says that like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you know, he doth protest too much.
Test too much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
So Selene's on
knowing that,
Colchis, they are fine. Yeah.
knowing that other people are going to read it and trying to protect her, of like, hey, Alexander will read this one day.
Exactly.
And like,
yeah.
distance the attention. Like, oh, why does he need to out her and like throw her in danger just to tell his story? Like, that's not the point. He's just trying to correct the history about himself. He doesn't need to air the dirty laundry. Honestly, like, he's sitting right next to her. Why would he shame her and like describe all the, you know, the saucy details between him and Selene? Right there. She's alive, you know? It's like,
How
why
awkward
do I
was
need
that
to
when
do
he was
that?
fawning about Valka and all those pages?
Oh, yeah.
And Selene's right there. Oh, Hadrian. I get that you love her.
But I also imagine there's a chance Hadrian's lying in the last couple of chapters about the exact plan that he tells Cassandra.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
oh,
you know,
yeah,
he
yeah.
says he's withholding
certainly.
details, but I bet there's like no reason to believe that he actually meant everything you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he like kind of reveals a little too much that would make her like a little bit too easy to track.
Define.
Yeah. And so like I imagine he's as the series progresses, I imagine he's lying more.
That could be an entire red herring.
As they get closer to the very end of Shadows Upon Time, I think I think there's a much more of like all right, I'm writing this very carefully as we're approaching, and I have to hand over the rings and all of this stuff, like that he is writing this much more intentionally to protect people that he loves. Like, he doesn't have to protect Nicephorus, right? So he can be honest about Nicephorus.
Yeah.
So everything Nicephorus does, he could say.
Right.
Same thing with Valka.
Basically, but with the
Same
two
with
women,
Valka,
but the 2 women that he loves who are still alive,
Yep.
he has reasons to be like very protective and to lie.
And how much of this whole series is like him saying the ending of like his story is done. Like, I've gone off to, like, I have died. I'm here on Colchis just to write my story, but like, it is the end. And basically the retirement and the final like swan song of Hadrian Marlowe. The fact that in prison he tells Cassandra Lynn the final thing of like, bury my sword on the grave in Colchis, because he knows that's where he's going eventually. And like, the person who wants to, you know, stay hidden, he's bowing out of the fight, doesn't tell him like the one favor is bring me my sword.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or
especially
he
with
could
him
just
saying,
be-
"I'm leaving Colchis after this. After I finish
Yeah.
this tale, I'm leaving." Like,
Yeah. He could just be giving Gibson back his sword because it's Gibson's sword, and he's going to
Sure.
bury it where Gibson is. So
But,
but I think so. I'm with you. I think so. I think Cellini's still alive, and I think he's and I think this factors in sometimes when people say, "Oh, I don't really have a feeling for some of these peripheral characters," and I think that factors into the kind of narrator that Hadrian is. He can be a little bit narcissistic, and it's his story. And these people around him are kind of functionaries, representatives to get his story across. This is antagonist. This is what I learned from this person. This person pushed me here. But it's all very self-reflective. I mean, he doesn't see very far beyond himself as a narrator or as a character. So I think that sometimes is what happens with some of these characters around him. But I mean, there's still beautiful things like a character just like Nicephorus, how we talk about, okay, the empire does crumble at the end because, the least of us, someone much like Lorien that is an androgyne or an incubus, whatever you want to call them, is slain without a thought by just some guard on the steps because they're not worth a thought. And because the least of us is not protected or looked out for, the entire Solon Empire is going to collapse now. So even though the peripheral characters may not be, there are still beautiful things, nuggets embedded there.
They at the very least make the world feel so much bigger too, because Bassander Lind, you see his arc from book 1 to 7. He's now a follower, a fanatic, and he started as the biggest doubter.
Yeah,
a true
absolutely.
believer. And the Urkatani, you see how they worship Hadrian, and we saw Udax. We know their history. We witnessed their founding.
We know their founding religious figures.
Yeah.
Which that is the coolest thing about Sun Eater, of the birth of legends. And even like we get to see the birth and death of legends, like at their peak and at their fall. We see the whole line of it, which I find so interesting. That not only do we get to see the birth of like the peak, the Hadrian Marlowe and Demon in White of everyone's like, oh my God, the legendary half-mortal. But then we even get in Ashes of Man of many people have now forgotten Hadrian. Of he gets to go around finally going like, some people really haven't heard of me. And some people like don't even think I'm real. That's how far removed he has become.
We also meet that character who I can never for the life of me remember his name that we come across, who is some hero legend in the Empire that he crosses by, and they have a
Hector.
duel.
Talking about Hector.
Hector.
Yeah. He meets Hector, and he's like the young upstart guy.
Exactly.
And he also will. Doesn't he also defeat a Sealson prince?
I think so.
Eventually?
Yeah.
I think it's like it's off screen, right? So it's sort of mentioned that he's done this. So Hector is this other kind of like legendary figure, but for Hadrian, Hector is basically just this like snotty kid who can beat him in a sword fight now because he's a little bit younger, right?
Yes. And he just got beaten up in Kingdoms of Death, I believe, right? Because I think this is Ashes of Man.
Exactly. He's like recovering from all this torture and like he's feeling his age. Kingdoms of Death is where like he really feels his age.
Yeah.
Right? Or Ashes of Man is where he really feels his age. Like he just draws attention to the fact that he has gray hair all the time. But I mean, you get to see all these figures that are being born and like right before they become legends. And the thing about them all is that they're kind of jerks and they're kind of like snot-nosed kids. Like Udax hates Hadrian and even is like willing to like try to kill him, right? Like and doesn't want to take orders from a human. And then of course makes himself into like a legendary hero and then becomes part of this like founding myth. Hector kind of just seems like a blowhard who's like very good with a sword, but he'll go on to this too. But of course, Hadrian was like a blowhard at first too. He was like this kid who really thought he could get away with this really dumb plan.
But a lot of that. Go ahead.
I contrast this with Sun Eater and Name of the Wind. The Name of the Wind. One of
You're
it's
just
like
talking about everything I hate, man.
I know
Sanderson and Name of the Wind. Oh God.
But the big central theme or like a big point of Name of the Wind is taking like, hey, you know all these legends that you've heard? It's actually super mundane and actually not that cool. Of all these cool things that you've heard, like me do is actually not that cool and very mundane. I appreciate with Sun Eater of like, hey, you know the legends that you've heard? It's actually like in some ways, like maybe that didn't happen exactly the same way, but also it's grander, it's bigger, it's just different. I love that the legends are actually legends. There's a reason for it. Udax is a hero. Udax did slay one of the hand of the Cielson.
One of the white hands.
One of the white hand. He did do that. Massive self-sacrifice and saved Hadrian Mart. Like, he did do that. Hadrian is a legend.
I hate this like subversion thing that you see in like some modern genre stuff of it's like actually these legends aren't nearly as cool and stuff. And it's like, dude, I'm not reading about men with like swords and dragons and magic powers because I want to find out that actually they're just like me. No, they're not. Like they have swords and they fight dragons and they have magic powers. Like it's the only reason I read this stuff. Right? Like, if you take that away from me, then like I could have read any other novel and it would have been arguably better. I read this for the cool story or like for the cool swords. Like, I have to have those moments.
100%. And sorry, going back to what you were talking about just before, where the minor characters with Alexander was brought up, and something I that grew on me with Alexander's character. Demon in White, he was being trained by Hadrian, and I thought the spark to their debacle of him overhearing something was a little drawn out. What is that? What's going on with Alexander? And he came full form in Shadows Upon Time, and also thematically works so well for me because we see that Hadrian worships, for a better term, respects and admires Gibson his entire life and this mentor figure. And the one thing he couldn't do as his character is mentor somebody else. And Alexander's his failure in many ways, and seeing how that failure is one of his obstacles, along with the Chantry, along with the Watchers, along with everything was built up and paid off in Shadows Upon Time in such a bombastic way.
Along with being a prophet, he has met God, and he cannot convert one person. Maybe Basander. Yeah,
Basander seems to be pretty converted.
But the thing is, Basander doesn't believe in the quiet. He believes that Hadrian is the God Emperor come again.
Yeah, the God Emperor. The return of the God Emperor.
Mm-hmm. As far as being like quite literally a prophet for his God, like Hadrian is tunnel visioned of like he has one job, one purpose. He does do that, and he can't do anything else. He fails as a mentor, fails as like all these different things that he fails at. But that just adds to how bittersweet it is. He does accomplish his goal at the end.
So one way of obviously, like the Catholic elements in this story are really heavy with Christopher. And one way that people talk about Jesus is like fulfilling like three roles of like prophet, priest, and king. And Hadrian basically fails at all three of these roles. So this way he is like a Christ figure. It's kind of obvious, but he is not in these, like, right, he almost gets to be king, he almost gets to be emperor.
How obvious is it?
It doesn't work. He's a yes he's a very,
are you sure?
Yes, he's Christopher showed me that cover like way before it was revealed. Sorry guys, but maybe you showed it to other people too, and I was like, oh, like the sword, it's like the Archangel Gabriel, and he like messaged me back immediately. He's like, it's a little more like Jesus. like there's the cross thing. Like,
the subtext of that was it's a little bit more like Jesus, dumbass.
yeah. But Hadrian is clearly a Christ figure, but he actually doesn't do it very well in a lot of ways, like because like he doesn't actually get to ascend to like any kind of kingship. He's not a priest in the sense of like standing in and like educating the people or like teaching the people or leading them in this new thing. And he's not a prophet because he can't actually get anybody to really change their ways. In fact, nobody ever changes their ways when they listen to him.
Guys, you all blew my mind. Oh, sorry, John, go. Go.
I'll do one last thing.
Yeah,
dovetailing off of that is that, I mean, the thing I love about it so much is that you never lose that complexity because, yes, he had the one thing to do. He'd eat the sun. That's, you're going to do that. But even by the end, he's really questioning himself. He's really questioning himself in somewhat of a failure, because if you look through the whole series, I thought this was just really phenomenal. It's like, okay, Howling Dark. By the end of that, you're saying, and you guys have brought up, oh, they're completely not like us. They don't even have a word for peace. It's got to be complete genocide. Wait, I have to, I have to buy in and do this. Do you really? You had that moment where you found common ground with the other person. When they lost their child, they reacted very humanely. You could, there's common ground there. Moving forward, like I say, you become godfather to you have the reaction of, had they not been poisoned by this fallen angel and signed on to this type of religious fervor and this belief, they would have been very much different. They would have had, so it's like this, he has to have these questions all the way to the end. It's like, yes, I've been touched. I mean, I'm the closest game piece on the board, and that's why I was touched, and I've been tasked to do this. But at the same time, is it the right thing? Am I really doing the right thing? Am I really a good man? Like, he's really got these questions all the way through. And is it really the right thing to do? Is it really the only thing to do? Is it over and over again, he shows signs of, yeah, it could have gone a different way. Maybe could have gone a different way.
It makes it such a necessary tragedy.
That's
a problem
tragedy.
I had in Kingdoms of Death. I was going like, before that, you're going like, oh my God, he blew up a sun. He genocided an entire race, a whole species, and also billions humans. Like, this awful thing. Like, it is the end of this series trying to justify what he has done, and like that's the ultimate question. And Kingdom of Death comes around, and you go, nope, all of them. You got to get them. Like, nope, I have all the justification I need. I pull that lever every time. You have to. It's a necessity.
Even without knowing the Watchers are talking to them, you just know everybody that is here wants to end the universe as we know it. It is an
existential threat. There's no working it out. Like, it takes the trolley problem and like throws that out the window. Like, nope, you pull the lever every time. Then the book 7, he still has to, but it now hurts more of realizing that like, because of Ushara's influence on the Cielsen, that's and the fact that Ushara's influence on their species over generations is what made it this way. And the thing is, maybe not even made it, but influenced it. And that now without Ushara now going forward, there's potential. Because I do like that this whole series does play with the idea of fate and free will, and ultimately lands on the side of, yes, like Ushara, all these demons, like they do influence. There is these celestial things like guiding and manipulating, but at the end of the day, it is our choices. And so going forward, maybe the Cielsen won't like, oh, hey, they're going to be good now. Now without Ushara, now without the Watchers, they're going to be, everything's going to be hunky-dory. They're all going to sing Kumbaya. No. But now it's possible. Now there's a potential without that influence. And it's the same thing with Hadrian destroying the Quiet or continuing on with his purpose. Like, and even that final moment of Hadrian realizing that his vision of the future is slightly different. That knowing that, Orphan wasn't here in that vision, and him about to say the same words that he remembered back in the Howling Dark, and then choosing to say something different and realizing like, actually, this was my choice all along. Like, I was shown potential futures. I was being shown all these different options, but the choice was still mine.
Yeah. And then he has to live with that choice. You know, I mean, he's got to live with that. And the death of Orphan was another huge moment that you just reminded me of that. But I mean, tragedy for sure, and never loses that complexity all the way through, even though it's like, like Jared says, we got magic and swords and we got to fight the dragons and stuff, but still we don't lose the complexity of the human struggle of what are we called to do? Should we really do this? And
yeah, guys, you blew my mind in separate ways throughout this conversation. Jared, the thing that stuck out from what you said today was how book one, Hadrian and Velka got what they wanted. Then I didn't think of that after my read. Jed, with your what's the term again? It was a very cool term for the parallel
Chiastic
structure.
plot structure.
Chiastic
plot structure.
Chiastic plot structure. That's going to change how I think about the series. And John asking what is a good man, like that blew my mind.
No, it didn't.
But what it did, no, honestly, what it did make me think about too when we were talking about what makes a good man and how when we were discussing this and going, oh, Gibson versus the Quiet's answer about that. If is it prideful to ask that? And now I didn't specifically think about that after the read, but now I am. Okay, so I just wanted to.
It's not just a repetitive question
No.
that Hadrian's asked. Like he does get different answers throughout the series.
But the Cielcid are just a dark mirror of us. Sirianni's just a dark mirror of Hadrian. Like he's just the closest piece on the board for Ushara, just the way Hadrian is the closest piece on the board for the Quiet to be moved in each other's way.
And Austin, I'm sure you said something that blew my mind. I can't recall it, but I'm sure.
Oh no, it was nothing. I said nothing. I was you know what? Well, Jared, let's start with you then of our conclusion of it. Last thoughts on Sun Eater, and obviously if everybody wants to check out other channels down below, Jared Henderson, Jed Hearn, and John Talking Story will all be linked below with all their good stuff. Especially Jed's interview with Ruocchio, John's as well. Jared, did you have one up on your channel with Ruocchio?
I once recorded an interview with Ruocchio at my house and then messed up the footage and then never released it.
That counts.
Yeah, he and I like went and got tacos and he came over and then we went and got a drink and then afterward the footage was totally destroyed. So
didn't happen then.
It couldn't work. But no, I would say I'm incredibly happy with how Sun Eater ended. You know, when I first finished Shadows Upon Time, I gave it a 3 out of 5, which for me is pretty good. Like I very rarely go above 3. I think I'd actually bump that up a little bit because even if I had gripes about the last book, it wraps up the series so well, right? And it functions so perfectly in the series. So I'm like, you know, I really think like back to like when I first started reading Sun Eater and thinking like, what am I going to get out of this series? And I think I got everything. And I like that, and that's a huge feat to pull off actually, to write a 7-book series and like by the end being like, wow, like I got what I was looking for here. And so I think like Ruocchio should be incredibly proud of this series, and I will heartily recommend this series to lots and lots of people.
Okay, last time I'll mention something like this. It does suck that obviously we didn't like Wind and Truth. And so there's that little bit of thing of getting somebody. I know, John, I'm sorry. I have to it's a tough thing to sit with of do I recommend a series where I really dislike the ending? And that's the big thing with Sun Eater of it only got better for me, which is why I can
You're going to have 12 nerds in your comments now saying it's not the ending. It's only the midpoint of the series.
You're
just have
right.
to wait
It's
a decade
the
for the
end
next
of
book.
arc 1.
That's not wrong.
Jared, thank you so much for saying that, because every time I say it, like what I actually mean is it's the end of arc 1. So that, Jared, you're right. Thank you.
The thing is, it's the end of arc 1, but it's the end. It's supposedly the end of these POVs as the main characters.
I also want to draw back and say, hey, I love
Whatever.
95% of Sanderson's book. Jared's a real hater for Sanderson here, so direct accordingly.
Yeah, it was the. I will say the Wind of Truth was an ending. It was the end of me reading Sanderson.
I mean, I will give.
We will try to convince you to read on, but
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Jed, did you want final thoughts on Sun Eater? Again, Jed's channel will also be linked down below, and the book you're writing right now, which is still not. Is there a date yet?
Aiming for mid-February next year to publish
okay.
it. So yeah, that's about plotting your fantasy novel.
Yep.
So if you liked my discussion of chiastic plot structure,
it
it only came because I've just been thinking about plot every single day for like the last 3/4 of the year or whatever.
Awesome.
I think to me, the Sun Eater series, and the reason why the last book landed so well is because it's a series that's really designed for the ending. There are so many series where the authors are, making it up as they go along, which is totally fine. That's absolutely one way to approach it. I think the reason why Shadows Upon Time is so satisfying, why it landed so well to me, and why it moved the series to being currently, I think, my favorite of all time, is because just everything was building towards this. And so, it wasn't just a case of like, oh, I'm kind of running out of ideas for this, or I'm kind of getting exhausted. I need to finish the next book or whatever, which I think happens with a lot of authors. And again, like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. There are some great last books that are created that way. But I think the fact that we know everything is leading towards this and how well the ending wraps things up, and in particular, how Christopher Ruocchio, he said on your podcast, and he said it when we were chatting as well, that his whole idea was to write a book where, spoiler culture wouldn't really be a thing, right? Like the whole idea that the ending before you go in. So it's not about that; it's about the journey there. Respectfully, I think that's not a fully accurate picture, and kind of, while I think is somewhat correct, also diminishes the accomplishments of his plotting throughout the series, because yes, he tells you the ending at the start, but the ending is really 5% of the total ending. And as we go through the series, you realize that, like, oh, okay, I thought I knew 100% of the ending, but in fact, I only know a very small portion of what's going on here. And I love the fact that we are still able to have so much uncertainty leading into the last book about how particular things will wrap up. Like, even we were talking about Selene before, and there was a point halfway through Shadows Upon Time where I thought, and the Emperor is offering Hadrian to become the Emperor himself and Selene to be his queen, where I genuinely wanted to believe, oh, hey, like this could end with Hadrian, like he blew up the sun, he becomes Emperor, but then before he kind of, fully accepts the mantle of the throne, he's like, hey, I need to go to Colchis, I need to write this down first so that everyone can know the story, and then I'll move on to ruling the kingdom. That's what I wanted to happen, right? Obviously, that's not how it goes. And
No.
I guess in the back of my mind, I was like, that's too nice. That's too convenient. That's like too much of a happy ending.
Yeah.
But the fact that that was still a genuine possibility in my head to be like, oh, maybe against all hope, against everything we've seen, there is a way for him to get a happy ending here. To me, that like just shows the genius of what he's able to do. The fact that he can give you that expectation that you know everything, and then as you go further, you learn less and less. It's the whole unlearning of history thing. And I'm very excited to see what he does with his, his next fantasy series. I think the reason why he did multiple point of views at the start of this book was partly to show you that he can write other voices, right? Because to me, I was reading through that and I thought, okay, this is interesting. Like we can actually have different voices from Ruocchio here. That makes me more excited for the next thing he writes, because he's sort of proven that he can actually create a character who is not Hadrian in that sense. So yeah, overall, just loved it. Absolute masterwork. If you want to talk about or want to learn more about the kind of technical sides of the writing with it and the craft stuff, definitely check out that interview I did with Chris. It was a really good chat. I learned a lot from going through it, and we talked about a ton of things that
It was awesome. Yeah.
like we didn't even get a chance to chat about today. Like, Siriani, like how do you design a great villain? How to make Hadrian, like how he made him so complex and multifaceted and everything. World building, tons of other stuff. So yeah, could talk about the series for hours, honestly. I really enjoyed this chat.
And Jed, how you got Ruocchio to do homework before coming on for the interview is awesome as well. We got to be that bold. And next time we have an interview with an author, hey, come prepped with this. Yeah. Which it was literally the most helpful thing, having Ruocchio lay out what he learned from writing his series. That's perfect way to do it. But yes, and now John, would you like to conclude us with your full thoughts on the finale and all things Sun Eater?
I mean, one of the things I love most about the series is that it's truly a love story to myth, legend, and story come all together, right? Mm-hmm. It's what makes us up. It's what defines us. It's how we decide what's important in our lives. We're storytelling creatures, right? It's just the way it is. And Hadrian's telling you his story. And through your time spent through the 7 books getting that story, by the end of it, you realize Christopher's achieved something that is probably going to be talked about decades and decades later, which is the biggest hope any artist can set out to achieve when they put paint to canvas or pen to paper, or pick your medium. So he never loses the complexity. By the end of this, he says, hey, unlearn all history. Stories aren't true. Maybe a lot of what I said isn't even true. But at the same time, through this journey that he's taken you on, you realize, oh, wow, I just went through something that I think is going to stand the test of time. And in this genre, will probably be looked at like Dune or Hyperion or something many, many years later. And I don't think there's anything bigger that you could set out and try and cross that finish line any better.
Well, freaking said, yeah. Rich?
That's the end of it. With the reason why the book 7 is so special to me is something John, Jared, both you mentioned here, is the fact that it ends it so well, like how much of accomplish that is to like 7 long books, a 7 thick book series, and to end it in such a satisfying conclusion is such a feat of it. That is the principal reason why I do think this is my favorite Sun Eater book. Maybe on minutia of details of like, if you want to like just splitting hairs, maybe Disquiet Gods is my favorite. But the fact that book 7 is the one to end it all and how meaningful it is to me of like as a totality of the series, I feel like I have to give it my favorite. That's where I lean on it. This is a very special series, and in all honesty, I am very interested to reread Empire of Silence. Now, I maybe not even reread the rest of the series yet, but I'm kind of curious. At some point, I want to get back just to see.
Now you get it though, because now when you read Empire of Silence, you understand the full picture.
To see where he started and try to remember that again. But
yeah, Sun Eater, it is my favorite sci-fi series. It's certainly completed series. We'll have to wait till Red God to finalize that. But I'm with you there, Jed. I can't believe what he was able to accomplish. And we've gushed about this so many times on the channel. We've had a full review. We've reviewed every single thing. We've interviewed Ruocchio. We've had a panel now. This will be one of our endings, viewer, for Sun Eater. This is one. And we will continue again one day with Sun Eater stuff, but I know we've been having a lot of content. We got it out of us. We were able to do it. But with that, we'll see you on the next regular episode. And sadly, it won't be Sun Eater.
And sadly, with all our lovely guests here, you'll see us next time, but we will continue on alone.
Jared's like, that's so freaking corny. Look at his face.
You guys are like genuine cheese balls. I could serve you at a party, and no one would ever know. They'd be sticking crackers in you. You know?
Bye all.